What's on your evil mind? Hold your insulting tongue and mark my words well.
How about this rumor that you are really hired, Mr. Stark?
And welcome to a special edition, a Treasury edition of the comic book Chronicles.
Yeah! Woo! Yay! That's so low, Dave. It sounds like there are people screaming outside your window.
Really?
Yeah.
That is so unfortunate. Apologies tonight, folks. This is at agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram. And for whatever reason, just as we were setting up and we were making some minor adjustments, my audio went to hell. So have to apologize, but this is not one of our regular shows. It's a Treasury edition, and this is specifically to focus on Endgame. Joining me tonight, we hope to have the entire Voltron, but right now what we have is 3/4 of it, at least in terms of what we have scheduled to be on tonight. With me tonight is one at PCN_dirt on Twitter. Say hello.
Hello.
Yay!
Woo!
It's better to have that.
PopCultureNetwork.com, INeedComics.com, ThatNewToySmell.com, VGLosers.com, FansOfPower.com, BeyondRetro.com, LockerRoomHQ.com. Yeah, you can find me.
There you go. And joining us after a bit of a sabbatical to take care of family business, we have at TimDog98 on Twitter. Say what's up, Tim.
Hello, people out there in the interwebs.
Yay! And hopefully joining us at some point tonight will be Roddy Cat on Twitter. He said he's going to take care of some business beforehand and hopefully jump on while we are broadcasting. So without further ado, we are here tonight to talk about one of the more momentous film events of our lifetimes, at least so far, because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. But to this point, I think it's safe to say this is the comic book movie we never thought we'd see, and it finally came, because we are, as PCN_dirt, and I'm going to focus on him, is putting up, we are in the Endgame now.
This is it. This is what it's all been leading to ever since the after credits scene of the original Iron Man.
Exactly. Everything led up to this. Is the culmination of, at the end of this movie, the culmination of 22 films up to Endgame. It was 21, including Endgame. It's 22. So we could just start with a quick overview of our thoughts on the movie. I'll start by saying that it's an incredible send-off to the Infinity Saga section of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. What do you guys think?
It was funny after it ended. I actually, I was cool on not having any more MCU films for a while. I felt like I needed a break, but then they gave us this Spider-Man Far From Home trailer that we'll talk about later, and now I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I can keep this train going.
Yeah, technically, I guess Far From Home is the end of this chapter of the MCU. So this is we still have one more to go technically, but
right.
Like I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great. I thought it was good. I thought it's definitely, if you're someone who hasn't been watching a bunch of these films, this is the absolute worst movie for you to possibly try to jump in on.
Very true.
But you know, it had a lot of stuff. It threw a lot of stuff at you for being, I mean, really what it is that summer spectacle movie. It's that explosions and 3D and IMAX and, you know, whatever. For being that type of thing, it is what it is, and it fulfills that role perfectly. But you know, it doesn't really stand on its own, and because of all the time travel stuff, there are some issues.
Oh, we'll get there. We'll get there. That's definitely part of my notes. I think it's not fair to take this as a movie on its own, I think that's a fair criticism, but I also think it's unfair because it's a lot of people have compared the MCU movies to episodic television, like really long and really expensive episodic television. And I see that, but at the same time, we get back to what I've always said is that the MCU, Marvel Studios, has made all of us accustomed, has made all of the movie viewers accustomed to the comic book style of storytelling, where there's episodes. And yeah, it is similar to television. So if you don't know what happened 5 episodes ago, it's going to hinder your appreciation and understanding of what's happening in the big finale.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think you could take a movie like Thor Ragnarok, and you really don't have to have seen the other Thor movies. Maybe
Right.
you only saw the first Avengers movie. Maybe you've just heard enough people talk about it. It's enough of a pop culture thing that you can watch that one and it doesn't really matter.
Right.
Like if
I mean,
that's the only one you've ever seen, you're still able to like, oh, okay, like I get it.
Right. Even immediately after the movie, a friend of mine asked, "Is this the best Marvel movie?" And I said, "It's not fair because I think the best standalone Marvel movie is still Winter Soldier.
Hmm.
It stands on its own from start to finish as a great movie. Whereas I think Endgame really requires so much more knowledge, and really serves as and I've seen this as a bit of praise, not even as a criticism, that this was every bit of fan service you would ever want. Right, every single corner of the Marvel Cinematic Universe was every fan of every corner was served, bits and pieces here and there, and you were happy at the end. So I think that's what this movie served to be.
Yeah, and again, I'll say, it was good, but
Mhm.
I wouldn't say it was great like some of the other films. Like, Guardians of the Galaxy, I think is another one that stands on its own. If
Right.
you've seen nothing else of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you can watch that, and that's a great film.
Mhm.
So you don't need the other stuff. Whereas this one requires the other stuff. So I would say it's not quite as good as some of those others because it exists really just as you said as the fan service. It's there to be that big blockbuster. It's here to fit that slot in the schedule.
Right.
It's what you expect at this point of the year. So it's fine for what it is. It's a good film, but yeah, it's not.
Right.
I wouldn't say it's the best thing in
Right.
the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I definitely have to say that it's maybe the most crowd pleasing. That's the that's the follow up to that. What are some of your favorite scenes from the movie? I know there's some real crowd pleasers, some real shockers. So I wanted to go through what our favorite scenes in the movie were.
I liked jumping kind of middle of the movie. I liked seeing Cap give his speech before they jump in the quantum realm to do their time traveling. As Rocket says, he's good at that.
Yes.
Seeing the Professor Hulk, because I actually forgot he was gonna be in the movie, and then to see him be basically be in the entire movie more or less. We saw Banner slightly at the beginning, but I've always been saying I just want a Hulk movie where he's Hulk all the time. Who cares about Banner? And Ragnarok gave a little bit of that.
A little.
But yeah, Professor Hulk was cool. Those, at least early scenes jump out to me.
All right. I think, and obviously,
Aside from like the big ones.
Yeah, what I was gonna say is obviously the spoiler, the ban on spoilers has been lifted as of today, thanks to the Russos. They came out and said it. Today is we're recording this Monday, May 6th. I'm still gonna ring the bell because there's still people that are lagging behind, but we are officially in spoiler territory. We've already spoiled a few things. Here's the bell. You are forewarned. Ding dong, spoiler alert. So one of my favorite moments was one of my sister's least favorite moments was the reveal of Big Lebowski Thor. because in the wake of not being able to reset things after they basically take out Thanos in their first mission of the movie, Thor goes into the big funk and basically goes to seed and drinks himself silly and puts on a ton of weight and plays Fortnite. Apparently, I didn't realize that. I was telling PC and underscore dirt before the show started. I didn't recognize that right away. It just came on the screen very quickly.
Oh, that was one of the few times my son shouted, "It's Fortnite!" And he was so excited. So exactly what you said earlier. Every bit of fan service that they could throw in there, they did.
Right. So, I know that was one of the one of my favorite scenes was the reveal, because I know there must have been some slack-jawed female fans in the theater, like, what are they doing?
Yeah, but now I can officially say that I have Thor's physique. And that's something I just couldn't do before.
But oh, forgive me for not having my sound effects running at full speed. Let's see. I mean, there's lots of and
I like that Ant-Man was a big focus.
Sure.
Because I like having one of the smaller characters stand out, especially one as fun and lighthearted as Ant-Man to be a part of it, and for him to constantly be, because the movie in many ways is so dark, and so him constantly being there to lighten things up and to add the levity to it. The scenes with the tacos when the spaceship comes and lands, all that kind of stuff, just adds to just having some lighthearted fun as the movie's going along.
Gotcha.
And along with that, when they get into some of the time travel, some of the stuff where they're sneaking around and they CGI them into the shots, or they have these really bad kind of alternate takes where you just see the back of someone's head and you're supposed to believe that that's the shot from the original movie and whatever. I did like the Guardians of the Galaxy intro where you just hear Star-Lord like, and you hear the feet squeaking on the ground and whatever while he's walking and doing the dance, because you're not hearing the music from the soundtrack. So I love that they threw in some of that fun stuff. That was some of the stuff that I enjoyed the most.
Sure. That's you kind of bleeding into the next category, which was our favorite character arc. So we can kind of intersperse our favorite scenes with the favorite character arc, because I think, despite my misgivings, I think my favorite character arc of the movie is for Captain America. We get some of the fan service points right towards the end where Cap, and like I said, I rang the bell. You're forewarned. When Cap gets Mjolnir and he calls it to him, that caused the biggest ruckus in my theater, and it was comparable to Hulk bashing Loki in the first one, where everyone's just like yelling out in glee and amazement and just joy, where I didn't hear a word that Thor said in the wake of that. Apparently he says, "I knew it," or something like that. I knew you were worthy. I did not hear a single peep out of Thor during that time. So, I think, that was one of my favorite scenes. And, I'll get into the arc of Captain America when we talk about maybe some of the endings that we saw.
My favorite character arc will probably be Thor's, just because he sort of still blames himself for not going for the head originally and everyone being snapped to begin with. And then when Rocket and Banner go to recruit him for their time heist, just the mention of Thanos like stops him dead in his tracks, and you can tell he's still suffering like PTSD. But then he gets his groove back after talk to his mom, and once he has both Hammer and Mjolnir and Stormbreaker, the gods updated his look, but yet they still keep him chubby. So can't erase that so easily.
Trust me, I've tried.
Right.
And then seeing them decide to go off into space and join the Guardians was a nice twist.
Right. I know some of my the friends I went to go see the film with, one of their favorite moments was when Thor was dual wielding Mjolnir and Stormbreaker, and he crossed them in an X, and it was just one of those, that's not even fan service. You're not expecting that at all. That was just a really cool moment.
Another favorite, actually, probably my favorite scene that I remember is when Cap passes the shield to Sam.
Oh yeah,
that was great.
Yeah, did you notice, Tim, real quick? Did you notice that the shield had a different look to it?
I did not.
I plan on going again, but I own one of the Marvel Legend replicas, and I've seen the Captain America movies a million times, and I feel like the close-up of the shield made it look different. It was constructed differently, and I wonder if that's going to be part of what is going to come in the future.
Yeah, I read something about that earlier. There was a scene, trying to remember.
They also teach the directors. They've been like every day is a different interview with them.
Well,
with
yeah,
writers and directors. And one of the first ones I know, I think one of the, I forget if it was the writers or directors, was saying that when Sam has it and has the shield, and Cap asks how does it feel, and he says it feels like someone else's, and I think Cap says like it's not or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
He was supposedly like teasing that it belonged to maybe Sam in another, whatever alternate reality Cap created when he stayed behind with Peggy.
Well, there was a scene that was taken out of, I think it's Iron Man 3, where Happy Hogan is sitting there like inventorying all the stuff as they're moving it out of the Avengers.
That was actually for Homecoming, right?
Right.
Oh, is it Homecoming? And he mentions Cap's new shield, or something like that.
Like a prototype.
Right. So it's they did have apparently another one sitting around somewhere. So
I mean, the next time you watch it, take a look at what I'm referring to are the ridges, in the shield, because in the original Captain America movie, it's just what looks like what turns into the stripes, when it's painted, are basically just layers in the disc, and it looks like the layers are a little different in the shield that Cap hands to Sam. So what I was hoping for, the little bit of fan service I was hoping for to eventually pay off, is that this is actually a vibranium steel alloy, so that it's maybe even stronger than the shield that Thanos hacked to bits. So we'll see if that's right. We'll see if that's something that pays off in the future.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. I appreciate that. I appreciated that the handoff. It's kind of funny.
That scene brings its own problems, but
right, yeah. Because let's not talk about time travel. Because every time I like about I have my notebook in front of me with my thoughts on Endgame, and literally about like 13 points in, I write, God, I hate time travel. I just do. My next point is time travel sucks, and the point after is, why did it have to be time travel? So maybe that's all going to be explained because of what we learned today in the trailer to Far From Home, Spider-Man Far From Home.
Well, I think part of the problem is they made this ending where they wanted to have this scene between Sam and Cap, so they just went ahead and put it in there, and then someone said, hey, that doesn't match up with the rules that you've already established.
Right.
So then afterwards they had to, no prize it. And that, well, it's the alternate timeline universe, and he found a way to jump over to hand him the shield as an old man, and then he's going to go back or something.
I don't know about that, because they literally, I mean, obviously we have to take a little bit of salt with the information that's provided in the new trailer. The new trailer that we talked about, we mentioned earlier, for Spider-Man Far From Home, that dropped today, Monday, May 6th, directly teased a Marvel Cinematic Multiverse.
Yeah,
and believe me, I definitely understand the problems with the time travel.
Well, no, but part of my thing, well, we'll talk about Far From Home later.
Right.
I've got another thing for that too. So
all right.
But yeah, so, well, I don't know, that whole ending with Cap and Falcon, it's like and then to have Bucky there, and because originally Bucky would have been the next one, and then Falcon would have been the third,
Right.
all of that. So, they wanted to work out this scene, and it made a nice little scene, and they had their little moment. But that's one of those things that they do that moment at the expense of the logic of the story, because when you're making a movie, it's more important to have that scene than to adequately explain it. So, it's they just kind of come out later and say, well, it's an alternate universe that he was in and he had to come over, because otherwise it makes no sense that Cap would just sit there for a couple decades, not get involved in any fights,
Yeah.
not do anything about Hydra taking over, not do any of the heroic
Right.
stuff that comes to him naturally because of who he was before he became. So you end up with this moment where you're like, okay, well, you're trying to save this, but it's not really saving it. Like you're kind of close, but you're
Mhm.
not quite at the point where you think you need to be with coming up
Right.
with this explanation.
Right.
But at the same time, it's for the purpose of making the film better as a storyline, not that it's serving the purpose of making the rules of time travel cemented in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Sure. I agree with some of the points that you make, because my first inclination coming out of the movie and my first feelings that I expressed in my first discussion were exactly that. Like, so are you telling me that the Cap that we all know sat through Korea, or was a conscientious dissenter at some point in Vietnam, and that somehow doesn't change a million things?
Well,
Or
and not
going
only
forward,
that, but
you know?
Peggy Carter, when he met her in the first movie, she was old. She had already been married. She'd had a couple kids. So technically, he'd be stealing that life away from her. He'd be stealing those children away
Right.
from her. So that's, in a sense, great. You've got your moment, but now you've destroyed the beautiful life that she had.
Right.
You
Believe
know?
me, there's a lot to this that it's going to be hashed out, I hope. I
But
have to
once they
tell
come
you,
back and they just say, well, there's a bunch of stuff that happened off screen that we didn't get into that would explain that. So, don't worry about it.
right.
You just have to kind of roll with it.
What I was going to say is, what's funny is that there's plenty of people, shout out to my mom, who was a big fan of the first Captain America movie, because it's really the only one that has a legit love story in it. You could argue about Iron Man and the arc with Pepper, but the first Cap movie had like a decent love story in it. And I remember my mom saying, well, she was disappointed that there was no happy ending, and my cynical superhero fan in me came out and said, there are no such thing as happy endings in these stories. And it was kind of nice to see Cap actually get his happy ending. It's a shame that she's not here to see it, but I definitely know that there are fans out there who were happy to see that, and those are the fans served by this ending.
Yeah. It is what it is.
Right. I definitely I'm glad that you brought that up and reminded me, because I kind of had glossed. I had this internal in the week since the movie. I'd had that debate, internally and with other people about what we're supposed to make of Cap's ending, and I kind of settled on the fact that at least he got his happy ending, and they can let the character go with that. We can kind of fold this into best surprises and worst surprises in the movie when it comes to anything, storytelling points, how things are different from the Marvel comic universe as opposed to the cinematic universe. I'll start things off by saying it was shocking to me to see, and the Russos had teased this in the lead up to Endgame, that there would be a distinct cost to the use of the Infinity Gauntlet, and I was shocked to see they really played that up. It's not something that we as comic readers are used to.
Yeah, and I'd actually forgotten about the whole subplot until later on when I was talking to somebody after the movie. I'd forgotten about the whole thing where he had to go and have the gauntlet, specially made by the dwarves on the planet of whatever with the stuff, because of it's so powerful. I'd forgotten all about that. I just remembered that he had a fancy glove that he had made to put his stones on. So,
Right.
you know, when you then see him and he's all burned up, and part of that's from using it a second time and all of that, that at least it raised the stakes of it enough that you knew it was going to come up again and someone was going to have to use it, and
Right.
it was going to be a problem.
Right.
So it did a good job of setting that expectation.
Right. And it was so different from what we had known previously from reading the comics, where the goal was to get the gauntlet and you could literally do anything.
Right.
And there was no cost to it. And I thought, at least for the sake of the movie, I thought that was a good decision on their part.
Yeah. I agree.
You have it down here, but didn't like you say, how was Hawkeye able to claim the Soul Stone? And didn't Guardians of the Galaxy introduce that like no regular human could possess an individual stone? But that's the reason Star-Lord, since he's like half alien or half eternal, was able to hold the Power Stone.
That actually, shout out to an old friend of mine, Dave Lefkowitz, who I had this discussion with. That was actually more about the mechanism at Vormir, but I think the deal with the Power Stone is different from all the other stones
because it's power, I guess.
You know, that's how I interpreted it. I mean, listen, that was another great moment where Thanos removes the Power Stone from the gauntlet to knock Captain Marvel across the world, basically, like into like upstate New York, like further upstate New York. That was a great moment.
Because see, who all holds a stone? Hawkeye gets the Soul, Banner gets the Time Stone.
Right.
There's some others I'm forgetting, I'm sure. There's Tesseract.
Yeah, but the Tesseract, exactly.
That's fine. Same with the Staff and the Mind Stone.
Right.
So I do appreciate them adding extra weight to the stones by, you know, if you need Hulk to use it because it emits gamma, so he's the only one. He was made for this, as he said before his snap, and that's the reason Tony couldn't survive doing his. So that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there was another worse moment I had, but now I can't think of it.
Well, while you're thinking of that, let me follow up on what I meant by how is Hawkeye able to claim the Soul Stone. The conversation that I had with my buddy Dave was, you know, if it's Black Widow's sacrifice and she's sacrificing herself, how is Clint able to claim the Soul Stone, because he's not sacrificing anything? And Roddy Cat was basically of the mind that you know, when we discussed it, he was of the mind that he was just there. He was there to claim it since someone else had sacrificed themselves. My thing is, and my friend Dave and I kind of came to this conclusion, was that, you know, you're sacrificing the thing you love most. At this point in the movie, Hawkeye had already lost his family. So what did he have left? And what he had left was his closest friend in the whole world. And that's who he lost. And that's how he was able to claim it. That's the only thing I could think of.
And the two of them have a history off screen.
Right.
That they reference, you know, from time to this is like that time in Budapest, you know, and whatever, where they throw in those lines. So the two of them have had time together where they have a bond and a friendship that's, you know, amazingly enough, boys and girls can be friends without being a couple. I know it's weird, but it happens. But yeah, so she, with, you know, his wife is gone, his kids are gone. The whole Ronin personality of him is like him giving up on everything that he had as a human and becoming this machine, becoming what should have been the Punisher, making an appearance as well in this, but whatever. And you know, she pulls him back, so she represents that humanity, you know, coming back to him, and he, in a sense, she saves him from destroying himself. So she is that bond that he has to this world. So for her to sacrifice herself, you know, that's everything he has left. That was the one thing that was holding him to this world. That was the one thing that was keeping him tethered. And now she's gone. So yeah, it makes total sense.
Right. just a quick note. One of the best surprises during the time heist part of the story was running into Robert Redford and Hydra and all the secretly Hydra Shield agents
In the
and
elevator.
yes, and then Cap getting into the elevator, and we're all anticipating that it's going to go down the same way it goes down in the movie, but as we all know, there's no time for that, and Cap kind of nips that in the bud, and he you never expect him to utter these words on screen, but when he does it, it's hysterical. It's actually moving because they're calling back to this really tough story in the comics, the most recent version of Secret Empire. So when he says Hail Hydra, another explosion in the theater. So
Yeah, and at least here they've done it. So now you know that they're not going to do that storyline in the movies because they used up the line here. So I love the fact that they folded it into this part of the story. So now, you don't have to bring it up again.
Sure. What did you guys think of the time travel? Because they obviously used a lot of extraneous or let's say references to other movies that involve time travel. Those of you watching on YouTube can see that the meme is "This game makes no sense" by The Simpsons.
Yeah, the time travel, it doesn't work. The way that they've written it is fundamentally broken unless you just go with the idea that when you shrink down small enough, not only can you move through time, but you can also jump universes as well. That's the only way it works, because otherwise, once they've grabbed the stuff and gone to the future, there's no way to go back and fix it because you've already changed it. It's one of those.
It's so weird.
It goes back to the thing I was using before with Austin Powers. He's trying to talk about time travel, and he goes cross-eyed in the middle of this conversation, trying to figure out how the rules work.
Right.
Although I heard a lot of people angry that they badmouth Back to the Future too. And that's, if you're going to do time travel and you're going to make fun of another movie that has time travel, then you better make sure your time travel works better than their time travel, and it's just as broken as the time travel from Back to the Future. So,
right. I mean, I've heard people say that they it does what they need it to do, and also in Ant-Man and the Wasp, they actually. What's funny is that's one of the movies that I've been telling people who need to catch up need to watch, because a lot of the concepts introduced there become important in this movie, specifically the fact that there are I forget what Janet Van Dyne, as played by Michelle Pfeiffer, says to Scott about avoiding these temporal tubes or temporal things in the quantum realm, because that leads you to travel through time. So they had already introduced that little bit of information in that movie. That's post Infinity War, so that obviously led us all to speculate that time travel would be important here in Endgame. But they did mention that. I don't think it's just a matter of going into the quantum realm. I think it's actually going into one of those kind of side branches that you can access when you're in the quantum realm.
Maybe.
Yeah, like I said, it does what they needed to do. So,
and like I said, it was fun. At least, again, this being that wrap up of everything, and Far From Home being the epilogue, we'll see how that plays in exactly. But this technically is that wrap up of everything. So doing the time travel does allow them to go back and show clips from the other movies, kind of play with them a little bit. The guys in the background and body doubles and blue screening them in the right spot, and all that kind of messing around with with all that stuff. So
Sure.
it
And
again, it
shooting,
added some fun to it as they were able to
right.
kind of play around with stuff that happened in the other movies.
Right, and shooting some new scenes with some old, old favorite characters, like putting in, into Camp Lehigh, putting Howard Stark. The version of Howard Stark, I guess they wanted was the John Slattery version. I would have been okay with the TV version. Was it Dominic Cooper? Going back to that particular time period. So when they shot those scenes at Camp Lehigh, that was nice to see. Obviously the scene with Tony and his father finally getting to say their goodbyes and their farewells, because of what I believe is that the Winter Soldier knocks the Starks off soon after that. And also what my understanding is that they actually didn't bring Natalie Portman all the way back. She just did some voice work, but it was nice to see her come back, and Rene Russo obviously filmed some brand new stuff as Freya from Dark World era Thor. So it was nice to see they were able to bring her back and give her some, some more, and give the characters a nice closure as well.
But no Anthony Hopkins.
No.
You're paying enough for all these other people.
Eagle-eyed fantasy sports fans would also recognize that ESPN's Matthew Berry was one of the Hydra agents walking along with Robert Redford.
Really?
Avengers Sires. And now it's funny because I recognized him. I was like, that kind of looks like Matthew Berry, but I was like, nah, it can't be. And then I think over the weekend or end of last week, they confirmed it. I read an article confirming it was him.
That's hysterical. That's funny. I did not know that.
Yep.
I need to go back.
He gets FaceTime, like you see him.
Wow. Did you guys, Dirt, you only saw it once, right?
Yeah.
I've only seen it once. I plan on seeing it again. What about you, Tim?
I watched it again yesterday, actually.
Nice.
On the down low.
Yeah.
Nice.
Through the Fire Stick. My brother got me.
Nice.
Yeah, just to throw it out there, but I usually don't see the movies right away. But I had a friend who he had bought a ticket for someone else to see it, and the person didn't realize it was 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to go to work at a certain time, and they realized they'd only be about 2.5 hours into the movie by the time he'd have to leave to go to work. So he realized he couldn't go see the movie. So I ended up, getting this text like, "Hey, we've got an extra ticket, to come see it this weekend." And well, I guess if you've already got the ticket, I'll go. So I went. And actually the theater was not packed, but it was also like 11:30 on a Sunday morning. So that may have something to do with it.
Yeah, that's that probably does. I definitely want to rewatch it. I had some kind of tough seats. I was close to the front, but I was in the middle, so all I had to do was sit back and put my head back, and there I was watching the entire thing.
I want to see it on. I want to see it in IMAX.
That's where I saw it in the one legit IMAX theater, and I was like leaning up to look at the top of the screen to get the entire thing in. So hopefully as the crowds die down a little bit, I might go back to watch it in IMAX and from a better seat.
Do you still have the 4D theater around you with the rumble in the seats and the things that move while you're watching? And
we do. I don't know if I honestly don't know if Endgame is playing in that. I'm gonna have to look that up. That's a good reminder. There's one 4D theater in New York City that I knew of, but that was from back around Civil War. So it's been a while since I went to see a 4D movie. I'm going to see if that's still working. All right. So we've been talking about some of the best and worst fan service moments. I don't know if you guys had any that you wanted to bring up. Well, I mean, exactly. Like they've been coming up in our conversation. So, if we're not going to come up with anything about that, then we'll just jump to why Thor's new look was necessary, according to the Russo brothers, the directors of the movie.
Wait, say that second part again.
Oh, I'll just repeat myself. Why Thor's new look was necessary, according to the Russos, the
Oh.
directors of the movie.
Yeah,
Just
I don't understand. Go ahead, Tim. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, it was basically just to show his how depressed he was, right?
Right.
I mean, it makes sense.
Right. That was they said it was necessary, and as I mentioned earlier in the show, I'm sure there were female fans who were very, very disappointed.
I heard. Okay, so the one argument I've really heard about the whole Thor thing is that when you look at Iron Man 3, and in Iron Man 3, Tony Stark is clearly fighting the post-traumatic stress disorder. He is freaking out. He's in a restaurant, and he's got the little kid there, and I think Rhodey is there, and he starts having a panic attack, and he can't breathe and hyperventilating and whatever, and a lot of that movie is dealing with him as a regular person trying to be a superhero and
Right.
playing with that idea of like you're in over your head and it's hard for you to deal with. And so people argued that Thor, basically turning into me with long hair, basically makes fun of this idea of how you deal with stress and you deal with the guilt of these things and whatever. But the problem is, one, Thor is not a regular person, so that changes things. But two, everybody deals with stress differently. And there have been people, I've been with that we were in a car accident at the same time, and I reacted to it differently than they reacted to it. We're both in the same thing at the same time, the same event. We're both passengers. Neither one of us was driving, but it hit them a lot harder for whatever reason, because that's just where their headspace was. And maybe that's just how they deal with stress and deal with whatever. So different people deal with things different ways.
Sure.
And so you can make the argument that it's not treated as seriously as the way it was treated with Tony. And sure, I'll agree with that, but you can't argue that they have to both react the same way. And it's going to take just as long, and it's going to be just as serious, and it's going to be just as hard, because some people snap out of those things and some people deal with it for the rest of their lives.
Sure.
So, I don't. The problem is some people take it as, well, I've dealt with stress and I don't like the way that they do it, because then it's making fun of me and it feels like it's devaluing what I went through and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's not about you. It's not like the Russo brothers did not write a script going, hey, Joe Smith in Cleveland, Ohio, we're going to make fun of you in this movie and we're going to use Thor to do it. So, you got to kind of let that stuff go. You don't agree with it, that's fine. You can not agree with it, but you can't act like it's an attack on you, because it really isn't.
It's wild because everyone, well, maybe not everyone, but I heard a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking in the wake of Infinity War about how Thor didn't go for the head, and it's really to the Russos' credit that they followed up on that note directly in the next movie, and they had Thor dealing with the ramifications of that move and how they really couldn't make things better after they, during the first revenge mission after Iron Man comes back from space. So,
yeah, and you'd like to think that originally this was a two-parter. This was supposed to be Infinity War 1 and 2,
right?
And instead it became Infinity War and Endgame. So you'd like to think that some of the stuff was obviously a setup for something happening in the second movie. So why didn't Thor just cut off his head at whatever point? Well, because he does it later and it doesn't work out the way you expect. So, so yeah, that's, again, you just have to go, it's a movie, stuff is going to happen to make the story flow the way they want the story to go. You have to kind of give up on some of the rules every once in a while just to let the scenes happen.
Sure. All right. Well, we can move on to, unless anyone else has anything they want to bring up, we can move on to what's next for the MCU characters and storylines. And this folds directly into, well, we can fold directly into this conversation what we learned from the Spider-Man Far From Home trailer.
Multiverse.
Exactly.
I think that's a red herring.
You don't you think it's going to be a red herring?
I think it's a red herring.
I like that they're using multiverse, and I've always associated that word with DC. Just saying.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, because I mean, they always call it Earth 616.
Yeah,
it was
I'm
part
used
of.
to it.
But yeah, I don't know that multiverse was a term that they naturally used a lot. But here's the thing. So we know that technically Far From Home is the epilogue to this grand storytelling thing. And
Right.
what they show in the trailer is that Mysterio appears. He claims to be a superhero from an alternate dimension, and he needs their help with whatever to fix something. And we all know who Mysterio is. So this
Right.
is we know that he's playing some sort of game because we know that he is actually a villain, and he's trying something. So the thing for me is that when you watch the trailer, it opens with Tom Holland standing there saying, "Hey, first of all, I'm very, very British, and you don't know that because I always cover up my accent." And then B, um, you have to watch Endgame before you watch this trailer because there's a lot of big spoilers for stuff that happens in Endgame in this trailer. And of course,
Right.
the trailer starts, and the very first thing is Tony Stark is dead, Iron Man is dead, and Peter's really sad about that. So for me, putting these different pieces together, you've got a villain pretending to be a hero who's a liar and a show off. You've got Peter really sad about Stark being dead. You've got Nick Fury and Shield, or the remnants of, whatever this group is that he has together, that are going to try to help Mysterio with whatever. I get this feeling like Mysterio is playing a con, and maybe he found like some vulture tech and he retrofitted it to be what he wanted to be, pretends to be a superhero, claims to be from another universe, says he needs whatever tech from Nick Fury and all those guys. So they're trying to work with him to get him something he says he needs. And I see Peter sitting there saying, if this guy can open a portal to another universe, I want to go see Mr. Stark. I want to try to save him or live in the universe where he still exists, or steal him from another universe and bring him back, whatever. And that's eventually going to lead to the downfall of Mysterio, because he's going to find out that Mysterio is a liar. He's really not from another universe. He really is a villain trying to steal some sort of technology that he thinks he can get from Nick Fury. And that desire to get to another universe where Tony Stark still lives is going to be what gives away the fact that Mysterio isn't actually from a parallel universe. He's just lying as part of his act to pretend to be a hero.
That's definitely a possibility for the story. That's a pretty well thought out summary of what this movie could be. What I'm imagining is that I don't know if you read Spider-Man, that Bendis story. My understanding, at least what I thought that they might be hinting at, is that story with Mysterio playing a large part.
Possible.
Maybe. But the problem is the Ultimate Universe was technically what they've turned into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They lifted a lot of those concepts and brought them over and reworked them for cinematic. So do they open a portal to like the regular Marvel universe? Like, are we going to see, does he open a portal and we see the X-Men and the Fantastic Four and, all of those guys? Because if they do that, okay, so here's the thing. If they do that in this movie, where they go in, they actually do open an alternate universe, and you do see Reed Richards, and you see Cyclops, and you see Wolverine, and you see all of these characters that
you could even see the spider characters. I said, I noted that we might see some of the other Sony spider characters.
Right, you see a Spider-Ham maybe makes an appearance.
Yeah,
maybe they'll do a thing where you see Howard the Duck and Spider-Ham and Rocket Raccoon, and like they're all having a conversation, whatever. But if they do that, then I will buy a ticket to see that movie every day for a week. If they show us the X-Men and the Fantastic Four and the regular Marvel universe all in one movie.
Because I have a feeling that's how they're going to incorporate all of these characters. Now that like I said, huge grain of salt, lots of salt. to take with these trailers, but you know,
I really expect it to be that he's just lying, and Peter's desire to see Tony Stark one more time is what's going to unravel the whole thing.
there's also theories that I read online that what they're referring to with what happened in the snap are incursions a la Secret Wars, the lead up to Hickman's Secret Wars, and that's how they're going to fold everybody in.
Wait, what?
There's so many possibilities that
Right.
I love it. Like I was thinking earlier, like they could do this to introduce like the Savage Land or Weird World, Thunderbolts from another dimension. That since there aren't enough like villains to form a Thunderbolts team currently in the MCU, they could show up and be like, "Hey, we're heroes from this other world."
Sure. So, Dirt, what I was referring to is I wish I had a citation for it. If I Googled it, I could probably find it. There's I read an article, and there's definitely some follow up on it, where the thought is, if what Nick Fury says is true, and at the with the snap, various incursions came from other dimensions. That sounds a lot like the lead up to Hickman's Secret Wars, and that would be how everyone comes together, is that it's going to be a Secret War style battle world where everything is mushed together. That's how they bring in all the other characters.
But I'm confused. What incursions were happening because of the snaps?
We don't know yet, but that's what the theory is that, you know, other dimensions were opened up during the snap, and those were quote unquote incursions, including how Mysterio makes, because your theory is that it's a red herring, but
Right.
let's say it's not.
And
that leads into a Secret Wars battle world style. Hickman style, not old school Beyonder style.
Maybe. We do have to. I do want to shout out real quick. The Armored Advocate actually jumped in the chat room here, so I'm glad to see someone jumping into the chat for on YouTube. So thanks for being here.
Hey,
but I don't know, because maybe if they're going to do something with that, maybe that could be something that happens towards the end of the film. Maybe there's something. He's not really from a parallel dimension, but Shield tries to build what he wants. Maybe he's trying to build something for an alternate dimension, and he ends up opening the portal to let Spider-Man war in or something. You know, who knows? But I don't know. It just seems to me like that would be too. That would be the setup for like unraveling towards the Secret Wars being the 20-year end game of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Right. That's my point. Like that would be the build. Like all of the following movies would build to that.
Well, but that's what so this one, but I would say Mysterio still wouldn't be from a parallel universe, but him saying that and then believing it makes them start to work on technology they think is going to create that, and then they end up creating it and it causes a thing later on. But I don't know. It's
fair enough. Well, listen, the fact that we can even have this conversation is awesome. That we can go back and forth and be like, hey, this is where they might go. I mean, after 11 years of movies, can you imagine? You know, like, I'm just thankful that we're still doing it.
Although I am going to be much more judicious in watching the Marvel Cinematic offerings in this next decade of movies, because I am very marveled out with these movies at this point. It's going to be one of those things where I don't need another origin story. I don't need, I'm much more, like I said, I've become much more interested in the Guardians and the Ant-Mans than watching, like, Civil War. To me was a disappointment of a film. And I know that a bunch of people are going to set pictures of me on fire in effigy because I said that, but you know, it's the smaller ones, that the more lighthearted ones, that I'm enjoying more than some of the bigger epic ones that they're throwing out there. So as we go into the next phase 5 or volume 2, phase 1, or whatever they're going to call it, right. As we go into that, I've learned that with as much attention as these movies get, like, you really don't have to watch them to absorb what's important in them. And even then, I can really wait 3-4 months, even home video, streaming on Epics or Amazon or whatever, and just catch them when they hit that route, because
Soon to be Disney Plus.
yeah.
But I think that's fair for the people who are not as invested in the movie to movie storyline. I'm looking forward to how they follow up on the post snap realities of some of the characters that we know we're getting. Sequel movies like Black Panther, like well, we're going to see an Eternals movie that's going to be rooted very deep in space. We'll see how that works out. I forget what else has been confirmed. I mean, not too much has been confirmed, but there's some idea of where these movies are going to go in the next.
Honestly, what I'm really hopeful is when Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, subtitled as Guardians of the Galaxy, comes out, that now that they have Stormbreaker and the Hammer, and now that Thor is back and he's out in space, now we're going to get Beta Ray Bill.
Yes.
Because they've got to, if they do not do a Beta Ray Bill when they've got Thor in space, I'm going to pull my hair out and set things on fire.
It's the perfect time to do it, and I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. If
I'm going to gift him what's Beta Ray Bill's hammer called?
Stormbreaker.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right. It's going to be a different dynamic than the comic, because the whole part of Beta Ray Bill was that he was one of the few people that was also worthy, and he defeated, even though it was another one of Odin's not tricks, but he definitely there was a hand-to-hand combat between Beta Ray Bill and Thor, but without the hammer, and Odin sent them to Muspelheim, which is a lot more which was very similar to Beta Ray Bill's home planet, which was really hot, and that really gave him the advantage in their hand-to-hand combat. So that was another scheme by Odin to kind of humble Thor a little bit. And at the end of the day, they're both worthy. Odin gives them both hammers, and they go on to fight, and that was that's that storyline in very short form. But it'd be interesting to see how they transform that in the next Guardians movie. I also read that Quasar might be introduced in the next Guardians movie also.
And well, if they're going to do Quasar, then they might as well do Barry Allen Flash, calling himself Burned Alien or something. I forget what my name was. They could just have some really fast-running guy with long blonde hair and a beard appear out in the middle of space.
That's a good callback, Dirt. That's a good one. That's
Quasar was one of those series that I absolutely loved when I was in junior high and high school. So I have no explanation for it other than it was just not the rest of the Marvel universe. So maybe that's why I gravitated towards it. But that was a fun series.
Sure. I mean, I'm hoping at some point they introduce the Nova Corps as we know them. Even though Xandar's been destroyed, hopefully out of the ruins of that, they can produce a Nova Corps that has, people that fly around because of bucket helmets.
Right. Well, and this gives them the opportunity now that, space is going to need some policing again. So
Sure.
They could probably find the remnants of a couple Nova Corps guys out in the middle of deep space. And they've done that before in the comics where they've had to rebuild the Corps, and, kind of like they do with Green Lantern, it's the Marvel version of the Green Lantern Corps. But they could do that, and that could be a movie. And if they're going to do Quasar, you can do Quasar and Nova. Those go together very, very well, and they have in the comics several times. So expanding that intergalactic stuff really opens a lot of opportunities to see that stuff happen. And it also, it's able to keep them away from the rest of the stuff happening in the the regular Marvel universe. You can have Ego the Living Planet attack, and it doesn't have to put Earth in danger.
Sure.
You know?
Sure. So we're going to start wrapping our conversation. I wanted to bring up one point that circles back to something we discussed earlier about favorite scenes and some of the fan service that we got. I wanted to mention that we actually got some crossover from Marvel television over into Marvel movies, and that was Jarvis, the actor James Darcy, who played Jarvis during the Agent Carter television show, made his appearance as Jarvis in the movies, and I couldn't help but like just sit there slack-jawed, because I think a lot of people were like, "Whoa!" They couldn't clap; they were just shocked to see it. And I know that I read in the New York Times had an interview with the writers Marcus and McFeely, and they stated that Jarvis was the only television character that crossed back to the movies, and it was pretty. I was sad to see that, and I was sad to see that one of the few characters that crossed from the movies to TV didn't make it in this movie. Hello, Lady Sif, where are you? Are you too busy filming Blind Spot?
Well, and I was really, really confused during that scene of the funeral where it's moving through and you see everybody standing there, and so you're like, oh, there's the guy from that movie, and there's the characters from that movie, and there's the person from that movie, and then there's this kid, and I'm like, well, that's not Spider-Man. What? And it moves on and it moves on and it moves on and it goes up on the porch, and I'm like, what? Who's that kid? Turns out that was the little kid from Iron Man 3,
right?
Who was running around with him. I was like, what a weird random person to throw in there, unless he's going to play some part going forward.
It's possible.
Is he set to be the next Iron Man? Like, is that because he's there? They made the point of showing him. So there's got to be something more that he's going to play other than just the fact that he was in a movie, so they're going to use him.
Sure. Even you bumped on it. Someone who doesn't watch all the movies, you still recognize the actors who are playing, some of the characters in the other movies. And
yeah, and I was disappointed in this one that we didn't get Daredevil, and we didn't get Punisher, and we didn't get Luke Cage, and just like none of those people. Even the big battle scene where they were bringing everybody in, I thought for sure they'd want to have Luke Cage step through a thing and have Iron Fist, standing there with them, do some sort of thing right there, and it never came up. I guess it just didn't occur to them.
Now, unfortunately, I think that's a legal thing where I think the Netflix characters are like barred. There's like a no compete in the cancellation, so that they can't be on screen for 2 years post cancellation. So we're still within that window.
So that's how they keep them from automatically appearing in the Disney
platform. Also, were the shows canceled at that time?
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is, even though those shows are canceled, they could have had the actors come in to make an appearance because it is the growing Marvel universe.
They don't care about TV.
Yeah, but they couldn't do it for they still can't do it for 2 years. My biggest problem was that, poor Lady Sif got shafted. Like, where is she? So, even if she got snapped, she should have come back. They had that little call out to Force, where they had all the female characters assembled to help Captain Marvel. It would have been nice to see her as part of that group.
But when Hulk did the snap, would he have been familiar with her to bring her back?
I think the idea was to bring everybody back.
Well, yeah, but wouldn't he have to know?
I don't think so.
Because he didn't bring Gamora.
He couldn't.
Died.
But he couldn't. I think.
Well, I guess if you die for the stone,
exactly. I think that was
different. But it's a different stone because that's the stone that Black Widow died for.
I love it. But yeah, we could go on and on about this movie. But I want to wrap up our discussion by ranking our current top 5 MCU movies. We kind of discussed this earlier. It'll be our final point of discussion for the night. Do you guys have your current top 5 MCU movies ready to rank?
in some kind of order, sure.
Yeah,
I
fire
mean,
away.
not in any order, but Winter Soldier, Civil War, Guardians 1,
Mhm.
Endgame, and Infinity War. Sure, why not?
Nice. That works. That works. I'll follow up. I agree. I still think Winter Soldier. I'll rank them. Winter Soldier, I think, is still my favorite movie. That's the one I can actually have on in the background or tune in at any time if I happen to see it on like USA, and I'll just flip it on, and be like, "Oh, this is a great scene. I'll stick with this," or I'll pull it up on digital and just start playing it while I'm doing something else or drawing at my drawing table or whatever. I'll have that on. Number two, I would probably put Infinity War number two and Endgame at number two, kind of tight because they're kind of the same. You know, they're two parts of the same movie tied together. So those
That's
would
cheating. That's
It
cheating.
is cheating, I know, but I would put them as number two. It is cheating. I would put them as number two. Number three would be, I think, I'm a sucker for the first Captain America. I happen to like that. It's an underrated origin story, I think. And number four is probably going to be the first Guardians, and number five would be the first Avengers movie.
Okay, so I'm not going to rank these, but these would be the five. I would say the original Iron Man.
Okay,
It still has its charm even
it still
after all of
stands,
this.
yeah.
Yeah, it still stands very well. Winter Soldier also, I love that. I'm kind of torn with Ant-Man or Ant-Man and Wasp, but I think I would go with the first one over the second one. Thor Ragnarok, obviously, I love everything about that one, and then Guardians Volume 2, I would put over the first.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's not the thing that you hear most often. That's interesting. Okay, all right. So unfortunately, Roddy Cat was not able to join us. I know that he's been chiming in online. In any event, I think we're going to wrap our conversation here. Please make sure to join us every Thursday night at 9-ish. Hopefully, we don't run into any more audio and video gremlins as we did tonight. We did not intend to start so late and stay on so long, but thank you for staying with us. You can follow us on our various social media accounts. Tim Dog is at TimDog98 on Twitter. The at PCN_dirt is on Twitter. You can follow myself at Agent_70 on Twitter, and you can follow Roddy Cat at Roddy Cat on Twitter, and our various social media accounts. Thank you for joining us on our latest Treasury edition to discuss Avengers Endgame. And if PCN_dirt can queue up our trailer video so we can head out, that'd be much appreciated.
That's not where I thought you were going. So keep talking for a minute then.
No worries. So make sure to follow us on our various social media feeds and tune in to our regular show 9-ish Thursday nights Eastern time. Our podcast drops soon thereafter, if not the next day, the day after in the morning. And thanks for joining us tonight. And whenever
all right, we're getting there. We're getting there.
I wish I had my sound effects queued up. But thank you, Tim Dog 98 for making time and joining us. Hopefully you can do it more often.
Ditto.
All right, and here we go. We're getting ready to sign off. Peace.
Would you believe it's Dr. Doom?
What's on your evil mind?
Hold your insulting tongue and mark my words well.
How about this rumor that you are really hired